What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Oak Tree Football channel, and welcome to another 2020 college football schedule breakdown and record prediction video. Today, I'm going to be doing the Washington Huskies. The Huskies were pretty good last year, finished with an 8-5 record, and they still have some good talent this year. Like quarterback Jacob Sermon, he's going to become their new starter. He is someone I think can be pretty good, but they are losing a lot of talent, such as quarterback Jacob Eason, Salvin Ahmed, Hunter Bryant, Aaron Fuller, and that's only offensive players, losing some guys on defense as well. And then along with that, they're losing head coach Chris Peterson. So it is kind of a transition year for Washington this year, but I still think Washington has the talent to be a pretty good team this season. It's just going to be a transition year for them, but they could still be a good team. They play in the Pac-12 in the same division as Oregon, so it's going to be tough for them to make the Pac-12 championship, but I still think it could be a good year for them. So let's get into looking at their schedule. They went 8-5 last year, like I said, and they had the 16th best recruiting class in the country, so very good. Okay, so they start off in week 1 with a tough game. It's an interesting one as well. It's at home against Michigan. This one's an interesting one. People have been talking about this one potentially being where College Game Day goes for week 1. That's a possibility. And it should be a fun one. For me, Michigan and Washington are both teams that are kind of in transition years this year, but should still be good teams. So it's kind of an interesting game, very interesting game to start off the season for both teams. And it's going to be a tough one for Michigan, but it's also going to be a tough one for Washington. It's an interesting one. Washington is at home, which is good in this game, which is good for them. And I kind of feel like Michigan's going to take a step back this year, if I'm honest. I still think they'll be a good team, but I think it will be a step back just because they're losing talent. They're losing Shea Patterson, who wasn't that good, but I don't think they're getting anyone better than him anyway. And I feel like early in the year, Michigan's going to struggle. It's a home game for Washington here, which is why I'm leaning towards Washington at the moment. It could go either way, honestly, but I think Michigan's going to have struggles early in the season. Washington probably will as well, but I just think that because Washington's at home, I'm going to take Washington in this one. This is a game, like I said, could go either way, but at the moment, I'm leaning towards Washington. Week 2, they should have no problem here. Sacramento State, like I said, they should have no problem. It's a home game. No problem there. They should win that. Week 3, they have their third out-of-conference game against Utah State. Utah State was pretty good last year, and they'll probably be okay this year again, but they're not going to be anything special because they're losing one of the best quarterbacks in the entire country, which was Jordan Love. Of course, he was drafted by the Green Bay Packers in the first round of the NFL draft, so they're losing him. And it's going to be a step back from Utah State this year. And sure, maybe they can contend in their conference, but they're just not going to contend on the road against Washington. This should be an easy one for Washington, in my opinion. So it's either going to be a 2-1 start or a 3-0 start, in my opinion. Week 4, they have a bye. This is a bit too early for a bye, but it's going into a tough game at Oregon. Maybe they could beat Oregon if they were at home, because this is early in the season. Oregon will probably not have everything figured out. Tyler Show probably won't be figured out as Oregon's quarterback. But this is just a home game for Oregon, and I just think that Oregon's going to win. I mean, if this was a home game for Washington, I think there's a good chance Washington wins it, but just because Oregon's at home, I think they're going to win. Oregon's just such a good football team. Great defense, great secondary, and then they definitely have the piece on offense. They're just missing a quarterback, but Tyler Show, I think, can be that guy. So it's going to be a good year from Oregon, in my opinion. And this is going to be a tough one for Washington, just being on the road. So I'm going to take Oregon at the moment in this game. Week 6, they play Oregon State. Oregon State is a team I don't expect to be great this year. Maybe they can fight for a bowl game, but not much better than that. Probably around 6-6, 5-7, in my opinion. Maybe they'll go even worse than that at like 4-8. But I think 6-6, 5-7 is a safe bet. And Washington being at home in this game, I don't think they should have too much of a problem here. They'll probably have some more players figured out at this point. So I think this should be a win for Washington. Maybe they can have some trouble, but I do think they should win. Week 7, they're going to have a lot of trouble in this game, in my opinion. It's at Utah. Utah is going to take a step back from last year without a doubt. They're losing a lot of talent, but they're bringing in quarterback Jake Bentley from South Carolina, who has SEC experience, which is going to be very good for them. But the real problem with them is that they need some more help on defense, and they need a running back. They seriously need a running back. They lost their fantastic running back, Zach Moss. Of course, he went to the NFL draft, so they need to find someone to replace him with. I still expect Utah to be a good team this year. It's just going to be a step back. This is going to be a tough one for both teams, honestly. Utah's going to struggle against Washington, but Washington's going to struggle against Utah. So this might not be the most entertaining game in my opinion. But right now I'm leaning towards Utah just because they're the home team. I think that Utah and Washington will have a similar record this season. And at the moment, just because Utah's at home, I think that Utah will be able to get the win. Week 8, I don't think they'll have much problem in this one. It's against Arizona. Arizona just isn't that good of a football team, let's be honest. Sure, they're okay, but they're definitely nothing special. And this is a home game for Washington. I think Washington will win. Week 9, I don't know about this one. They play California. They are going to take a step up this year, unlike some of the teams in the Pac-12, like Oregon, like Utah, that are going to take a step back, in my opinion. Well, maybe Oregon won't take a step back, but Utah will take a step back, in my opinion. California is going to take a step up. California is going to be a good team this year. I really do think so. They definitely have the talent to do it. And it's going to be an interesting game, this one. Right now, I think that California is the better team, and California is the home team in this one, which is why it's going to be tough, in my opinion, for Washington to win. I do think it's possible, but I think it's a lot more likely Cal wins. At this point in the year, Washington will probably have a lot more of their pieces figured out, so maybe that'll help Washington win. But I just feel like Cal's at home. Cal is a better team, in my opinion. Unless Cal just doesn't have a good year, I think that Cal should win this game. So, then week 10, this is an interesting game. It's against Stanford. Stanford is going to get better this year, in my opinion. Maybe not that much better, but they're going to get better, in my opinion. They're not losing all too much, and they're getting some good talent back. It's going to be a better season for Stanford than last year, but I don't really think they'll be able to contend immediately in the Pac-12. Be as good as teams like Washington, Utah, California, and even Oregon. And this is a home game for Washington, so I think they should be able to get this one, get a win in this one, just because their pieces will probably be figured out, like I've talked about before in this video. They should have their pieces figured out at this point in the year, and I do think that they should win here. Stanford will take a step up, though, like I said, and it could be tough for Washington to win after a road game against Cal, but I think that they should be able to win here. But Week 11 is going to be tough. They have to play on the road at USC. USC is a bit overrated, in my opinion, and in some other people's opinion too, but I still think they will be a good team, probably a top 25 team this season. So it's going to be a tough one for Washington to go on the road and beat them. USC, of course, has Keaton Slovis. Their new he was a quarterback last year. He was very good. He was a freshman last year. He's coming into his second season, and he should be good again, in my opinion. He could even be a Heisman contender potentially. So I think it's going to be a pretty good year for USC. Maybe they're being a bit overhyped, but I still think they'll be good. And this is going to be a tough one for Washington, just playing on the road. Week 12, this one should be pretty easy, at home against Colorado. Colorado is actually the team that I support in college football, but I know that they're going to take a step back this year. They were not that good last year, and they're losing a lot of talent. They're losing their head coach. They're losing Laviska Shenault. They're just losing so much. It's going to be a setback for Colorado this season, in my opinion. And maybe if Colorado's at home in this game, they can get upset. But just because Washington's at home, I think they should be able to get a pretty easy win there. And then Week 13, they play at Washington State. Washington versus Washington State. Washington's definitely the better team, in my opinion. I still think Washington State can be okay this year, but it is a home game for Washington State. At the moment, I think I'm going to pick Washington, though, just because I do think Washington is better than Washington State. Washington State could get the win, but I feel that Washington is the better team at this point in the year, so I think that Washington will win that one. So now, I'll go through every game once again. I'll give my predictions for who I think will win, like I always do. Week 1 against Michigan, I think that will be a win. I think that Michigan's going to struggle early in the year. It could be a loss, but at the moment, I'm going to have Washington winning that one. I think they'll easily beat Sacramento State and easily beat Utah State. Then they have their bye. I think they'll lose to Oregon. I just don't see them winning on the road. I think they'll beat Oregon State, and then I think they'll lose to Utah. Just don't think they'll win on the road. I think they'll beat Arizona, and then I think they'll lose to Cal. I just don't think they'll win on the road. I think they'll beat Stanford, and then I think they'll lose to USC, just like these last 3 losses. I just don't think they'll win this game on the road. At Week 12, they have Colorado. I think that's a win. And Week 13 against Washington State, I think that's a win. So my predicted record for Washington this season is 8-4. It's kind of an unfortunate schedule, in my opinion, for them, because their 4 toughest games, maybe Michigan's tough one as well, but their 4 toughest games, their 4 toughest in-conference games, are all on the road, which is just very tough. They have Michigan at home, but If they have Oregon at home, I don't think they'll win that game. But if they had Utah at home, I think they'll win. If they had Cal at home, I think they would win. If they have USC at home, they could even win that game. But I think 8-4 is a pretty fair record for Washington this season. It's very interesting because they're pretty much in a transition year, but they still have the talent and they still have pretty easy of a schedule. I think 8-4, 7-5 is about a safe bet for them. I think they will return to a bowl this season. So they're just a very interesting team. Losing a lot. It's just going to be a transition year, like I said, but they still have talent, and I still think they'll go 8-4. So Washington's a very interesting team to me this season. I'm finishing 8-4. Those are my thoughts on the Washington Huskies for this season. What are your guys' thoughts? Tell me in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like. And if you are new around here, feel free to subscribe for more daily NFL and college football content. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video.